years, students have been relying on caffeinated drinks like coffee and Red Bull to stay awake and alert for longer. Recently, some have turned to prescription medications known as smart drugs for increased results. One such smart drug is Modafinil. We've come to Wembley to meet Wendy, a student who's asked us to conceal her identity. Wendy uses Modafinil.
It's not like a party drug. You don't sit there, you're not buzzed, no one would be able to tell that you're on the drug. You don't show any signs. It's just, you feel completely yourself, you just feel motivated. You just feel like you want to do the work. I just got really low and overwhelmed with all of the work, and I just felt like I wasn't keeping up. So I just decided, after hearing about it from my friends, that this was the best way, and I found that it's really worked for me. Online, usually there are companies, there's a new one called Modafinil Cat that delivers worldwide, but before we used to order it in bulk and then we'd share the pricings with me and my friends. Whilst it's making me focus, it's still me doing the work. It's not making me smarter, it's not enhancing my work in any way, it's just making me focus on the work.
Modafinil doesn't appear to be like other drugs. So far there are few known side effects. Student life in 2016 is highly pressured. Because of the cost of university, many students now study and work in order to afford tuition fees and pay for the cost of living. This is Mandy. We've also changed her name to protect her identity.
Unfortunately, I'm not enjoying my course. I do become very, very stressed about it, and I put a lot of pressure on myself about. I'm currently seeing a counsellor because I've been a little bit emotionally unstable, stressed about different things in life. My experience with Modafinil, I've only taken it 2 or 3 times, and I've never taken a full dosage, only half a pill. And the first time I took Modafinil was at a party, actually, because I was falling asleep. The second and third time, I got it off a friend of mine.
We have come to Cambridge University to meet world-leading clinical neuropsychologist, Professor Barbara Sahakian. She has conducted studies on improving cognitive function of the brain and has a number of concerns about students using the drug.
When we look at survey studies that are published, most of these have been done in the USA, and they find about 13 to 16% of university students are using these drugs. Even a small 10% improvement in a memory score could lead to a higher A-level grade or degree class. I was working with Lord Aradasi. He's a surgeon at Imperial College. He was concerned about his surgeons who were taking a lot of coffee, caffeine, to stay awake. They had to do operations. And of course, with caffeine, anybody who drinks a lot of coffee knows that you can get a hand tremor or maybe palpitations. You get these side effects that can be very unpleasant and certainly not good for a surgeon. You don't want hand tremor. So he wanted to know about a Modafinil and whether that would be a better cognitive enhancing drug and keep people awake and alert, but not have some of these side effects. So we did a double-blind, placebo-controlled study and found that the sleep-deprived doctors were actually much better under Modafinil.
We will shortly be arriving at Oxford High Street.
However, at Oxford University, Professor Anders Sandberg, who has used Modafinil, has few moral issues with it being used in universities and professionally.
So Modafinil, for example, I typically set my alarm clock half an hour before I want to get up, take a pill, go back to sleep, and then wake up with quite a lot of energy. So the main obvious effect is, of course, energy. It's a stimulant, and I'm getting more done in the sense that the threshold to start a new task gets lower. But the really interesting effect is that focus on the really clever reasoning that is sometimes necessary here in the philosophy department. I can actually focus on a very complicated argument if I take a Modafinil better than I would have otherwise. So many people would say if students take enhancers to function well, then they're cheating. But we need to figure out what cheating is. In sport, cheating is about not following the agreed on rules. But what are the agreed on rules for education? That depends very much on what we want education to do.
We spoke to PhD student Emre Bard in New York via Skype. He's just completed his PhD researching ethical issues related to cognitive enhancement.
On this question of whether those students who take smart drugs are cheating, I actually think that to some extent, yes, they are, because they are using a chemical substance that was intended to be used for medical reasons, and they are, in a sense, abusing it for personal advantage. Not to mention the fact that possessing these drugs without a prescription is not exactly warranted by the law. But assuming that some smart drug actually works in giving people this advantage, then they are thereby putting pressure on other people to do the same if they want to remain competitive, right? So they are creating this atmosphere whereby other people who might not have thought of using drugs to stay competitive then have to consider it. It might not be seen favorably by let's say, your future employers if your good performance is dependent on you having access and having continued recourse to a chemical substance.
The use of modafinil and other cognitive enhancement drugs in universities has created a number of serious ethical issues. We contacted the Minister of State for Universities and Science, but he refused to comment, as did the Russell Group of Universities. However, the National Union of Students did say in a statement,
"We're hoping to do some research on this later in the year, but unfortunately we don't have any current stats around smart drugs, so we really can't provide any further comment or information."
Professor Barbara Sahakian believes that modafinil raises so many questions that students, universities and the government should come together to find a way forward.
I've been quite keen to get the government to look into that with the pharmaceutical industry, because I worry about students getting these drugs over the internet.
I get by without it now because I've relied on it for quite a long time. I can not take it and still be motivated to do the work. It just depends on the mood that I'm in. Like, I can force myself to do the work. I would be able to survive without it, but obviously I'd rather have it.